Well, hello, everybody. It's the Week in the Tackle podcast. Week in the Tackle predicts the weekend. I am Tom Rennie. That is the legendary stud muffin, Brian. Dunny won't share his Apple subscription password. Dunseth, how are you, mate? You all right?
You know, you guys, I blame you. Because on the Friday edition of Grumpy Pundits, I dropped an F-bomb on accident. I didn't finish it. The G wasn't in place. It kind of ended with the Fuckin, and I stopped there. But then you kind of doubled down on me. You made it incredibly awkward. You pointed out my flaws. You pointed out the fact that I couldn't say sorry, Tim. I said the word "fkin." Sorry, Tim. See, nobody knows. It's different here. But you had to point it out. You had to make it worse. And you guys are rubbing off on me. I don't appreciate my professionalism taking hits because of you two knuckleheads. So, hey, good to be with you.
I mean, to be fair, I only swear on the podcast. And also, when I swear too much, I ask for sections to be cut from the podcast because I've gone too far. So, you know, we've got a system. We have to have a system on the program. And I very much enjoyed it. And it's weird for me because I mainly, before working for Sirius and the FC channel, I'd only obviously worked in England. And I'd never worked anywhere, be it the BBC, LBC, TalkSport, anywhere, where there wasn't a dump button. So this goes back to the first time Rodney Marsh ever said to me on a program. And Tim was producing it at the time. And I was like, what do we do now? Like, I knew the process would have been like, standard apology or whatever. But normally what would happen is someone would dump it. We'd stay silent for a couple of seconds and I'd pick up like nothing had happened. But because we didn't do that, and for some reason, we'd never spoken about it because I just assumed there was going to be a dump button. I just sort of froze for a few seconds and then was like, so Rodney, talking about yada, 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 like nothing had happened. But then you can say in America, which is so freeing. Though when I go on UK radio, you can't say it. So
so what's the equivalent? Like officially, what's the equivalent for like saying that word in England or for here in the States?
Of what?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I did one the other day that I thought would be fine, but wasn't, which was, I'm going to say on the show, I said somebody was a...
Oh, yeah, you can't say that.
Yes. So I suppose that, I mean, you'd be banned from saying that in sorry, England
Tim.
as well.
You got to say sorry, Tim.
That'll be cut. So, okay. So this will be cut as well. Sorry, Tim. So you can't, I don't know. It's tough to find the equivalent. I don't know because you don't really have one. But I suppose
I'm watching Tim Horsey put in his notes and it literally says submit for awards. And then it says, Dunny says F word. Tom says B word. Tom says B word. Tom says B word. Tom says P word over and over. So he has his, that is effectively Tim's version of the drop button. It's just categorizing the moments in which he needs to bleep out the words we say.
I'm starting to see why we don't get awards. If you would like to ask us some questions, by the way, dear listener, we've got next Tuesday's podcast, so 5-6 days from now, whatever it is, and then we're on kind of summer hiatus. We're going on holiday, or what Gary Neville would call a mini retirement. So we're going on mini retirement for a few weeks, but we are going to record some shows on Tuesday, listener question shows. I'll also do something for you from Prague, post the Conference League final, if we win. So send in your questions, send them into @SiriusXMFC, send them to Tim Horsey on Twitter, to Tom Rennie on Twitter, get in touch with Dunny on the gram. We'll find a way to put something out on the Week in the Tackle Twitter handle and Instagram handle as well. And after we've recorded the main show on Tuesday, we're going to do a few question times, which we're going to release to make sure we've got that tip-top quality content that puts you in the top 50 soccer podcasts in America, where we live. So send your questions in. We'll also go some of the questions we previously not answered as well. And we'll do some fun shows for you to fill out the summer programming while Dunny and I he'll get a tan. I've got to chase a 3-year-old around a baby pool, but whatever. It's going to be fun, sort of. Right. Predicts the weekend. This is such a great weekend. I love this weekend because on Saturday, there's the playoff final. We spoke about this on our Grumpy Pundit show on Sirius XMFC on Friday. Luton Town against Coventry City. Luton Town were in the 5th tier out of the Football League only about 10, 11 years ago. Multiple times they got to the playoffs to get out of that division and didn't do it. They've now got to a position at Kenilworth Road, which has not been updated in 100 years. It's got the famous oak stand where you basically go through the back gardens of old ladies to get to the away section. Incredible story. Almost no budget. They take on a Coventry City side who when I was growing up, they were the first team I ever saw actually play in the Premier League. My first West Ham game was against Coventry. Phil Neal was in charge, the Liverpool legend. My mate Bobby Gould had just got the sack. Phil Babb was playing centre-half for Coventry. I think Roy Wegerle was playing for Coventry at the time.
Yeah.
I think Kobe had gone, or maybe he was going to sign the next season. I don't think he was
Kobe
playing.
was 93, right? I think he was... I think he was 93 or 95.
He may have been there or thereabouts. I think maybe he was going the next year.
He was either before or after the World Cup. Yeah.
I think it was probably, anyway, he wasn't there at the time. But so Coventry, this incredible history in the Premier League, Dion Dublin, Darren Huckabee, and then they went down in 2001. And for 20 years, for some games, they played at Northampton. They've also played at Birmingham City, who were kind of hated rivals in Birmingham. They've gone down to League Two, financial issues, different owners. One of the owners, some hedge fund, bought them like the day before they went out of business. It's an amazing story. I can't do it all here. We did it on the show. And of course, there'll be great things written, I read some great bits in the Times in England on Friday, all about it all. But Danny, just a brief word on this before we do some Premier League predictions. This game, they say every year in the press releases, it's worth around $220 million of revenue you will get, which you weren't going to get if you stayed in the Championship. If you stay up, chuck another $100 million on that. If you go down, part of the original money is guaranteed parachute payments for at least 2 years. These are clubs where this kind of money, we joke about it a bit with kind of Norwich going up, going down. These two clubs themselves will say, I cannot believe we are here. We have no business being here. And maybe they will both go down. One of them will go down next season, whichever one comes up. But this is genuine club-changing money. One of these two is about to get.
I just think the history, and talking to Tom and talking to Jamie, respectively, for Coventry City and Luton Town and their podcasts, just hearing the history and you can hear the emotion, you can hear kind of the fear of what the weekend looks like should the result not go their way. But I thought one of the things that was most extraordinary is that they were both kind of okay if they didn't go to the Premier League, because the opponent had such a similar pathway to this moment. And it was almost like it was better that it wasn't Middlesbrough or that it wasn't insert name here, that it was because these two that are so close in terms of similar story that they were almost happy for. And that's something that I've never seen before. I've never seen two sets of fans say, well, if we can't do it, at least they get to do it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty extraordinary. But I agree with you about the money conversation. The money changes everything. It'll be interesting to see the lone army conversation with kind of the local lads, and then identifying who can actually give them an opportunity to actually stay up, something that we're seeing happen this year. All three teams attaining Premier League status for the following season, which is a huge, huge challenge. But the money changes everything, from the infrastructure to the club to, those cleaning the canteens, to what the potential of a stadium upgrade looks like, especially with Luton Town, and what their hopeful new ground potential looks like, especially with the 10 to 15 million investment that they're already talking about right now. But yeah, incredible storylines. And for all those that don't know the story, highly suggest just Google search the names of these two teams. Google search what the game looks like and the tactics and the adjustments and how they play, because we always do the stylistic football conversation, but this is just about winning and the emotion that comes into winning, knowing that the payout is extraordinarily high. 11:30 Eastern time on Saturday. Highly suggest you tune in and watch.
The winner will be in the Premier League next season. Huge riches to be won, but also football is around and about the glory of it, the joy of it, the expectation of it, the delivery of it. And both teams have sold out near 35,000 tickets. And outside of London, Coventry in the Midlands. Incredible.
And from a U.S. men's national team perspective, I totally blew this one. I didn't lead. Ethan Horvath is the goalkeeper for Luton Town. So a tie-in for the U.S. men's national team fan base that we're not aware of where Ethan Horvath is. It's a great opportunity to tune in and support.
Could be a playoff winner 2 years running as well. Great speciality to have. He'd probably stay at Luton, to be fair. I'm not sure Luton are going to do a Nottingham Forest. We shall see. Anyway, it's a game that's definitely worth watching because, and if you want a game with something on the line, you do get a trophy as well, to be fair. Yeah. But that's seriously something on the line. It's one of those things that, briefly, I went to the Championship playoff final in 2012. We had Sam Allardyce as manager at the time. Ricardo Vaz Tê scored a late goal in a 2-1 win over Blackpool. When you talk about kind of sliding doors moments. Everything that's happened to West Ham in the last decade, which has impacted my life as well as career. The fact I'm going to Prague next Wednesday after, to this Conference League final, all of it comes from winning this game. Blackpool, on the other hand, who we beat on the day, have been in League One, back to the Championship, League One, back to the Championship. It's almost the definition of a sliding doors moment. So we wish both clubs well. Maybe similar to the Premier League as well on the final day of this season, Dunny. At one point a few weeks ago, we had the conversation. There was 10 teams in it, 9 teams in it, 8 teams in it, 7 teams in it. It always felt like, as it always does, it was going to start boiling down to a core few. And of the core few, Southampton gone. Leeds United, Leicester City, Everton are in this mix. Everton, 2 points clear of the relegation zone.
Yeah.
They have Bournemouth at home. They're 15th and safe. Leicester City are currently in the relegation zone, 7 years after being Premier League champions, a year after being Conference League semi-finalists against Roma, 2 points behind, but favourable goal difference. So win for them, draw for Everton. Leicester will be up. Leeds United and Big Hippo Head Allardyce, they are in 19th, 31 points. They need to win, but also overturn a goal difference swing of 3 on Everton. So essentially, hope Everton lose. If they draw, Leeds would need to win 3-0. 4-0 would make it safe. 3 would make it even. I think it goes to goals scored after that. I'd have to double check what the next one is. But either way, it doesn't favour them. Dunny, incredible stress. They've all got a home game. All bets are off. I mean, how do you see this going?
Yeah, I do think all bets are off. I would say for Everton, they have the best opportunity with a Bournemouth side that is safe. So a 2-1 win is what I'm predicting. For Leicester City, I just think panic sets in against a West Ham team that is safe, but yet finally playing with the confidence and the style that which we saw them qualify for Conference League last season. And then I think ultimately you're looking at a Leeds side at home against Tottenham. Are they trying to qualify for Conference League, or are they trying to avoid Conference League? I think Leeds draw at home 2-2 against Spurs. So I think Everton will ultimately be safe on the day.
I mean, just briefly on the Conference League point or Conference League point, I desperately hope Aston Villa win against Brighton. Can we really handle months of Tottenham Hotspur whinging about the fact they've qualified for the Conference League when they feel they're better than the Conference League?
Yep.
Villa fans, some of our friends are Villa fans, they would just love it. And I mentioned this a couple of days ago on Twitter, the fact that Villa, Brighton and Newcastle, for all the issues we're going to have with Newcastle moving forward, for those fans that have had to wade through, sorry, Tim, over the last few years and not get the chance to go to, like, people have ragged on the Conference League, and I get why maybe Tottenham don't want to be in it or Man United or whatever. But for me to be able to go to, well, Prague, and I've been to Bucharest, and people have been to Vienna this year. They got to go to Vienna for some reason in midweek. It is awesome. I want there to be more European competitions, and I want Villa to have this incredible journey and enjoy it, as opposed to Tottenham fans just whinging and pissing and moaning about the fact they think they're a Champions League club. That's what.
And to your point, Unai Emery will take Conference League really seriously. I mean, especially after what he did with Europa League. So I think it fits perfectly. I would love to see Aston Villa, especially the story, going from Steven Gerrard and to see Unai Emery turn this team completely around. I mean, you talk about a fantastic manager. You got to give the man credit.
In terms of the relegation battle, I think it's fascinating because Everton, I was listening to Sean Dyche speak on Friday, and he was really intense and aggressive and energetic in his press conference, as opposed to his kind of bit more laid back, though still kind of laddie demeanor. I think he's feeling the stress of it. I think he knows that if he takes Everton down, his Premier League time is probably over. It came a couple of years too late for him. He finally went to the right club for him, but he went at a time where they were in disarray thanks to whatever Frank Lampard had been doing. I mean, yeesh, what an awful manager he is. So I think that he knows what is on the line here for him, Sean Dyche. But they can't score a goal. I mean, the Brighton thing was an anomaly. I think if it comes to trying to fight out a 0-0 draw, definitely. But if Bournemouth score early in that game, though Bournemouth are checked out because they've done their job, and well done to Gary O'Neill, which we said repeatedly, they'll be dangerous on the break. Solanke, Billing, Utara. They've got players who, at pace, over the top, could really have a go at a pretty slow-looking dinosaur-like Everton defence. So if they score first, Everton, great. If it's Bournemouth, you're in massive trouble. For Leicester, cannot believe they're in this situation. It's a example, if they go down, for all the teams that are in that mid-level: Brentford, Fulham, Palace, West Ham, Forest. It can go tits up very, very quickly. And so you've got to make sure you're continually thinking about the future. If the investment is lacking, you've got to sell and get that money in and reinvest. You don't keep your players too long if you can't afford to do so. If they'd had sold James Maddison last summer for 60 million and reinvested in 3 £20 million players, would they be in this situation? I don't know. I can tell you in the situation now. So what they did was the wrong thing. So look, I know they've had other issues as well with the owners and the money and all that, but still a shock they're in there through just a malaise that I think took hold of the club. And for Leeds United, another abject example of just really misguided ownership. And if your pathway goes from Bielsa to Sam Allardyce, from tapas to mushy peas in 18 months with the same ingredients, this is kind of what you expect. And I hope maybe some lessons have been learned of the sacking season. And it's not always a good thing to do, as we spoke about at length, Danny, on the big podcast a couple of weeks ago. Unless you've got a better manager you're going to bring in, you should not be bringing in another manager, because it doesn't make any sense. So for me, I think they're all going to lose. I think they're all going to lose. I don't see Leeds beating Tottenham, certainly not by the goal swing required. And I think if Leeds score first, it makes things fun and sexy on the day. But even a poor Tottenham will be able to hit this Leeds team on the break who can't defend. For Leicester, similar sort of story. I enjoyed West Ham last week for the first time in months, even objectively watching them play with some freedom for the first time since August. Shows what could have been for West Ham if they had a slightly better season around November through March. And by slightly, I mean not lose 7 in a row. And for Everton, how do they score 2 goals? I think they've got to score 2 goals to win. And that's been the story for a long time. So I think, Danny, we might get a stressful, and thankfully I'm not involved in it, day where they all lose. And I tend to agree with you. I think Everton are going to have circled the plug hole all season long and are going to stay up, having won either 7 or 8 games in a season. Incredible.
Well, which will be extraordinary considering the new stadium on the way. Moshiri will probably get himself another £50 million, and Everton stays up in the Premier League. And not that they deserve to based on the course of the season, but it's been an incredible story the last couple years of survival. On the flip side, man, what an incredible story for all the wrong reasons for Leicester City. You know, the promotion and the rise and the winning of the Premier League and the consistency of qualifying for Champions League and then Europa League, and then dumping out of Conference League to then being in the situation where Brendan Rodgers is effectively either bought out and put on gardening leave or forced to finally walk away with so little time left in the season to try to send. And by the way, now that I know that Mushy Peas is Jesse Marsh, I feel so much better about myself, because I've been questioning who Mushy Peas is. And now I finally figured it out when you put it in contextual frame of the former managers and current manager of Leeds United.
One final word before we run out of time. I just want to wish all the best to Borussia Dortmund this weekend, because, you know, we did the show a couple of weeks ago on the Premier League going a bit Bundesliga. And the worst thing that can happen to any league is that 1 or 2 or 3 teams continually win it. And the vast majority of the people that go to games, the vast majority of football fans, don't get to have any joy because the riches, the wages, the success has been pilfered by a greedy few. And Bayern Munich, as we hear a lot from our kind of experts, they're almost a German national side. Any player you've got, they've all been kind of bred in a way to want to play for Bayern. And so they have taken that league that otherwise might be the best in Europe with the kind of the rules on fan ownership and whatnot. They need to be broken up. That needs to be broken up. And it might happen this weekend if Borussia Dortmund somehow don't shoot themselves in their own foot and beat Mainz this weekend at Signal Iduna Park. And I have a special place in my heart for them, because not only is Sebastian Haller playing up front, and of course his recovery from cancer is a great story. West Ham flop Sebastian Haller, but also Edin Terzic, their manager, was my old gym buddy at David Lloyd in Gidea Park. He was Super Slaven's assistant at West Ham during the last ever year at the Boleyn. So in many ways, we get to win this, and I hope it happens.